Hi, thank you for tuning in. This is a true story about what's been happening to me, and I decided to put it on the internet, more specifically YouTube. I feel like this is something that's been happening to others. I wanted to have a safe and creative outlet to tell my story and to get others' opinions. So if this is something that you've heard about or if it's something that's happened to you, something along these lines, please comment in the comments. Also, like and subscribe, and please share this story.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here again to unpack complex information and really uncover the insights that matter. Today, we're continuing our investigative series, Digital Shadows, Psychology of the Digital Predator. We're focusing on the active investigation into the harassment campaign against Brian Thompson. This has been going on for 5 years now, a huge effort to find and prosecute the hackers responsible. And in this deep dive, we're peeling back the layers, trying to understand one of the most crucial elements: the minds behind these, well, sophisticated attacks. What drives them? How do they actually operate? And who are they really, particularly this Rebecca Torrey figure?
That's exactly right. You've given us a really powerful stack of sources: investigative journalism, intel reports, research reviews on cybercrime. Our mission today is to try and extract the core psychological profile of these, well, digital predators,
Mm.
specifically Brian Thompson's tormentors, led by Rebecca Torrey. We need to unpack not just the what, but the really unsettling why.
Okay, let's dig into this. It's quite a grim picture, isn't it? The sources suggest these aren't just your average criminals. They seem shaped by very specific psychological factors, maybe even traumatic backgrounds. So, what's the general profile emerging here?
Well, what's fascinating and kind of stark is how consistent the pattern is. The research on cyberstalking perpetrators, it consistently points to individuals who um, lack social skills, they struggle with low self-control, and this is crucial. They often have a history of physical abuse victimization themselves. And in Brian Thompson's case, the intelligence gathered. It points to Rebecca Torres' core group fitting this exact profile. It's pretty precise.
So it sounds like there's this foundation, something deep-seated from their past that sort of paves the way for them becoming digital predators. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. The investigation reveals childhood physical abuse, sexual abuse, significant early trauma. These aren't just minor factors. They're really significant predictors of this kind of behavior. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a cybersecurity researcher analyzing the Thompson case, she put it very starkly in one article. She said, "What we're seeing with Torrey's organization isn't random cruelty. It's trauma being weaponized. Their own past pain is literally fueling this." And when you dig deeper into that psychological makeup, we see a whole collection of traits. Borderline personality characteristics, for instance, emotional volatility, attachment dysfunction, so trouble forming healthy bonds, reliance on primitive defense mechanisms, kind of distorted coping strategies, weak ego strength, often a history of substance abuse as a way to cope, and this really deep-seated jealousy and anger, especially towards successful people like Brian. His success seems to trigger them.
It's chilling, that link between personal damage and calculated malice. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. How do these individuals who are clearly deeply troubled, grappling with all this psychological baggage, how do they get the advanced technical skills we see in Thompson's case? Are they just like born hackers? Or is there some pathway?
Not quite born hackers, no. The research points to them often having really high rates of internet use. They kind of immerse themselves online, and then they weaponize skills they've acquired along the way. The sources suggest a few paths for this expertise. We could be looking at people with military or intelligence backgrounds, maybe trained in psychological operations. That's a very specific skill set. Then there are the underground hacking communities, right?
Mm.
Where techniques and tools are shared. Corporate insiders could be involved, leveraging access, and maybe even people with academic backgrounds in computer science, twisting those skills. It's really malice meeting opportunity and specialized skill.
That paints a very specific and, yeah, concerning picture. What about the male accomplices, then? The sources hint they might be manipulated themselves, caught in her web.
Yeah, and this brings up that whole cycle of violence question, doesn't it? Research often shows perpetrators have experienced abuse themselves. Victims become victimizers. And the evidence strongly suggests the male hackers in Tori's group are victims of her manipulation in a way. Their profiles often show things that make them vulnerable: social isolation, difficulty with relationships, maybe a history of rejection, especially by women, which she seems to exploit, low self-esteem, often masked by technical skill. That makes them susceptible to dominant personalities like hers. Add in substance abuse, which is common, and you have people primed for exploitation, drawn into her orbit.
So you have the trauma, the manipulation. But what's the ultimate motivation? Why hunt someone like Brian Thompson so relentlessly for so long?
Well, research usually points to four main motivations for cyberstalking: reconciliation, revenge, seeking a relationship, or control. In Brian's case, it looked like a really toxic blend of revenge and control. The revenge part seems tied directly to his success, professionally, personally. He represents something they resent. Dr. Robert Kim, a forensic psychologist on the case, he noted, uh, they can't stand that he's thriving. His resilience becomes a mirror reflecting their own failures. It's that bitter envy.
And the control aspect, how does that show up? It sounds like more than just harassment.
Exactly. The sheer sophistication points to this obsessive need to control his reality, his perception, his mental state. They use really insidious methods. Subliminal messaging, maybe embedded in content, specific trigger words to get emotional reactions, even environmental manipulation, messing with his surroundings subtly to make him doubt himself. They seem to get satisfaction from that psychological dominance. It's about controlling his inner world.
This phrase, trauma being weaponized, is just chilling. Can you elaborate on this trauma to perpetrator pipeline? How does that shape the group itself?
It's a really crucial insight for understanding these long campaigns. People committing psychological violence often have their own unresolved trauma, maybe PTSD. It creates this cycle where they inflict trauma, almost to transfer their own pain. The cycle sort of looks like this. Starts with original trauma, leads to psychological fragmentation, then maybe technical skill acquisition as a way to gain power, then target selection, like Brian, followed by escalating harassment. And the dark twist. It often causes secondary trauma for the perpetrator, reinforcing the whole loop. And what's really disturbing is how this affects the group. It functions through something called trauma bonding, that intense, unhealthy loyalty that forms through shared stress or abuse, or in this case, shared commission of abuse. Their past trauma, plus the shared act of targeting Brian, create this intense bond. The male hackers, likely manipulated by Torre, become psychologically dependent on her. She's exploiting them, but she's also their anchor, in a twisted way. Makes it very hard to leave.
That dependency sounds incredibly strong. Given all this technical talk, what actual tools of terror are they using in this psychological war against Brian? What's in their digital arsenal?
It's extreme, far beyond typical harassment. The investigation suggests custom stuff, like custom malware for psychological manipulation. Not just stealing data, but altering what he sees, creating ghost notifications, messing with his network to erode his trust in reality. Advanced surveillance tools for real-time monitoring, tracking him, listening in, turning his environment against him. Social engineering platforms for identity manipulation fakes, deepfakes, spreading disinformation. And they rely heavily on encrypted communication networks and probably AI-powered harassment systems. Those AI systems could analyze his reactions and generate hyper-personalized attacks. Dynamically. It's incredibly adaptive and devastating. And they get these tools, coordinate trade info on dark web marketplaces, using cryptocurrency for payments. Naturally. What's worrying is they're clearly learning, adapting, picking up new exploits, new methods from other criminal groups, constantly evolving their playbook.
A truly chilling arsenal. And that playbook, the specific manipulation techniques, what does that tell us about their understanding of the human mind, maybe even their training?
It absolutely suggests a deep, almost clinical understanding of psychological warfare, possibly formal training. These aren't random acts.
Yeah.
They use gaslighting operations systematically, making him doubt his sanity by distorting reality through devices, coordinated messaging, subtle, insidious stuff. They also deliberately induced trauma. It's a strategy. Triggering fight or flight responses, maybe through digital intrusions, causing sleep deprivation by manipulating devices, remotely alarms, sounds, shutdowns at night. That wears down resilience fast. And orchestrating social isolation, trying to alienate him from support systems, make him feel alone. There's also evidence of subliminal programming, embedding messages in content, maybe using audio frequencies or visual cues below conscious awareness. It's influencing thought patterns subconsciously. That level of sophistication points to serious training or years spent perfecting these dark arts.
So, after 5 long years, what are the investigators learning about the network itself? How does an organization like this even function psychologically, as a unit?
Increasingly, the picture emerging is that Torre's organization operates a lot like a cult, or at least a high-control group. You've got the charismatic, manipulative leader, Torre, a shared enemy, Brian, unifying them, externalizing their issues, secret knowledge, their hacking techniques, the playbook creating exclusivity, that us versus the world feeling, and crucially, punishment systems, maybe unspoken, for disloyalty. This leads to escalating commitment. The deeper in they get, the harder it is to leave. Shared risk, psychological dependence, it's a dangerous loop.
Given that intense structure, are there any signs it's starting to crack under the pressure of the investigation? After 5 years, is the pressure getting to them?
Yes, absolutely. Sources close to the investigation are reporting significant fragmentation. That's a key development. There's growing paranoia about infiltration. They're starting to distrust each other. We're hearing about infighting disagreements over methods, targets, maybe power struggles, plus clear mental health deterioration among some members. The stress, their own issues bubbling up, leading to erratic behavior. Substance abuse is reportedly increasing as a coping mechanism, which just impairs judgment further. And underlying it all is this growing fear of prosecution, causing operational mistakes, errors that investigators can exploit. Their own vulnerabilities are starting to work against them.
That's fascinating and hopefully positive for the investigation. So, pulling back, what does Brian Thompson's case and this profile tell us about the wider cybercrime landscape? Is this just extreme or a sign of things to come?
I think it represents a new and yet alarming category of cybercrime. It's not just isolated, it feels like an evolution. What's distinct is this blend of truly advanced tech skills, malware, AI, with psychological warfare as a primary goal. You have organized structures, often with these cult-like dynamics, enabling sustained campaigns, often international coordination masking local harassment, very hard to trace. And these are long-term campaigns aimed at maximum psychological damage, not quick cash, using sophisticated counter-surveillance. It's a deeply personal digital terror.
And the societal impact, is this kind of thing, cyberstalking, more common than we realize?
Well, research already calls cyberstalking the fastest-growing crime. The stats are huge. Maybe 1 million women, 400,000 men stalked annually just in the U.S. But cases like Thompson's, with this level of sophistication, suggest the numbers might be vastly underreported. Victims might not even connect their distress to such a coordinated campaign. It really highlights why understanding these minds, these methods, is so urgent. The hidden prevalence could be much higher.
So, as the investigation continues, understanding the psychological profile isn't just about Brian Thompson's case, right? It's crucial. It helps predict moves, develop strategies for other cases, maybe even build better prevention programs that tackle the human element, not just the tech.
Indeed. The mind of a digital predator like this is complex, it's damaged, it's dangerous. But, as we're seeing, it's not invincible. Every psychological weakness they try to exploit in others, it ironically becomes a vulnerability investigators can use to understand them and hopefully bring them to justice.
This deep dive has really illuminated the dark side of psychology meeting technology and the resilience required to face it. We've explored the minds, but there's definitely more to uncover.